Hey everybody, I'm Pooch Van Druten, and
This is Chris Rabold. Right here.
Chris Rabold.
Right here.
How are you? Pooch and Rabold, episode 37.
Wow.
How you holding up? How's things?
Things are things, it's an interesting time right now where we have long settled into COVID, but now we are deeply supplanted into the muck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're just sort of stagnant, and it's just doing its thing. So
I think the hardest thing for me right now is the news, the media has picked up this whole, we're going to have a surge, we're all going to die.
mm-hmm.
And all I see in that, unfortunately, is our industry getting extended.
Getting pushed back. Right.
I look at all that stuff, and I know that everybody's kind of hurting and they're seeing all that. So all you guys out there, hang in there, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've been saying all along, we will go back to work. We just don't know when,
Right.
And do whatever it takes, man.
Yep.
Do whatever it takes to feed your families for now.
Yep.
And
have your own gloom and doom filter too.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, remember nowadays, our news sources are all virtually, what's the phrase I like? Infotainment. In other words,
Yes.
they need the scare factor, wow factor. I'm not saying that that facts aren't the facts. Data is not data, but with a grain of salt, should we all take what we see and read? You know what I mean? I mean,
media used to be, respectable and reporting just the facts.
Right.
And it's turned into that old, 80s or 90s show, A Current Affair. Do you remember that show?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
It's all of our news has turned into, info.
There really is no news anymore. The only news left is like a tornado hit today. Like that's news. It's indisputable. It happened. That's, you know what I mean?
Those are facts. There was a hurricane that came through New Orleans this morning. That's a fact.
It happened. We know it happened.
But
and also know that social media is not a news source either.
Oh boy, is it not?
Let's remember that one.
Yeah.
Let's remember that one.
Have you seen that Netflix thing about social media?
The second person in the last 6 hours that's asked me that. I haven't. I've heard of it. I've heard it'll make you want to get off all of it.
It's crazy. It didn't make me want to get off everything, but it certainly made me way more informed about it. It's creepy. Like it's
social network. That's what it's called, right?
Creepier than you think it is, which is pretty fucking creepy, right?
Yeah.
Because I already thought it was like, oh, this is creepy. Facebook is listening to me. We'd be in the back lounge talking about something, and the next day I'd have ads.
Totally.
For whatever we were talking about. But it's creepy.
Text
it's like watch that thing and you'll be like, oh. Anyway, so go check out that if you want to get more depressed.
Yeah, exactly. Sounds like a real uplifting one.
No, I think it's important what you just mentioned, managing your expectations and your goals and kind of taking it day by day, trying not to bite off more than you can chew, I'm trying to compartmentalize, if that makes sense. So it's like, I focus on the next 3 days ahead, and try not to, and try not to be, the big picture of like, we're not going to work for another 6 months.
Right.
Because that just doesn't do anybody good.
Yeah.
I do that is not good.
Yeah.
And I am doing everything I can to keep my brain active in regards to music. So guys, if you have a DAW, any DAW, go get Reaper for $40. And just mix tracks. There's websites out there that you can download free multi-tracks of things, 200 track things, and just, keep up on your skills. Even if you're having to work another job, like come home at night and mess around with the DAW.
Just play around.
Yeah. Because I think one of the hardest things about this time period right now is the fact that we don't have that artistry happening.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's not even so much the financial insecurity, which is horrible. I get that.
Which is massive.
But we don't have an outlet for our artistry. It's like taking a canvas away from a painter.
Yeah. And I was thinking about this last night. You know how it is. Live sound too is there's the roadie element to live sound, which is not an artistic element, Right. So like live sound is this, like, for those that are mixers, has this artistic endeavor, but it's also kind of wrapped up in some of this other stuff that goes with it that at times can kind of take away from the artistic. It almost lends itself to not look artistic because the roadie factor is so strong. But in fact, when you're in it, when you're mixing, and there's no manual, there's no instruction booklet, there's no nothing. I mean, that is creativity at its finest right there, putting this all together in very difficult environments. I was just thinking last night, I was just like, man, because I've been mixing some stuff, but it's not even challenging things, but it's just not our thing. It's not my creative outlet.
Totally. And I enjoy it. And when I tell everyone that you should go, keep going on with your skills, that's just to keep your mind active.
Absolutely.
You're absolutely right. I miss the, walking into the shitty smelling venue and going, where's catering? I mean, that's part of it too,
right.
It's not just the, well, I'm a mixer and I'm an artist and I'm missing, it's not, I miss everything about it.
Right.
So, I'm thinking that when we do go back to work, at least for like the first 6 months, we're all going to be like high-fiving about our jobs. We're going to be like,
yes,
this is amazing.
Yeah.
I ever bitched about, riding around on a bus. I don't know.
Yeah. And I'm convinced, just like where there's this thing of, well, we'll never go back. This is the new normal. This is the new forever. It's like, shut up. Yes, we will.
That's not true.
Yes, we will. But I also think the whole, like, man, when we get back, there's going to be so much gratitude. There absolutely is, for a little while.
I was just going to say, how long is the honeymoon?
and then this is all like human stuff, you know, and then we're going to go back to, so this, if anything though, both of those things are encouraging, because what they're saying is, man, don't discount how quickly things can change.
For real.
So remember that, because this sucks right now, but man, I'm telling you, it's going to change. It will change. And then also just look at that, what that says for both of them. Even though the second one is kind of a shitty, pessimistic look at the human condition, it's also like, hey, things change quickly when they change.
For real.
So,
yeah. I mean, there's no question that our stuff is going to look different, when we go back. There's going to be, who knows what, like quick testing. Everyone's got to get tested. Everyone's, you've had a little experience with that, right? Like going back to
I have. But see, and I too don't think that lasts forever.
I don't either. But I do think it's probably for the first couple of years, even if there's a vaccine, and even if there is no more things in sight, I think for a while we're going to be in this, hand sanitizer quick. Yeah.
I tell you what I was thinking of today. What did it come today? I was thinking about, randomly thinking about my console. It's why I was thinking about, it's not important, but I was thinking about, like we all have our talkback mic.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about just, having someone at the desk being like, no, go ahead and you tell the band if it's the MD or something, and them leaning in and doing it. Yeah. Like that's going to be, some of those things are going to be weird. It'll take a few years for that to kind of normalize again, Can
you imagine, like, it's already creepy in monitor world.
Oh, how crammed it is.
Ear clean. No, I mean like the ear cleaning and the handling of microphones, already they're doing some weird biohazard crap over there. It's only going to get worse. I walk over to Tater, and him, with whatever 13 sets of ears that are just
gunked,
dude. And I'm just over there like vacuuming out stuff.
Yeah.
So that is going to be super weird, right? Like you're going to have microphones that are like sanitized and isolated from each other. And
And again,
I don't know
I
honestly
think
what that looks like, but
right. And then, but then after a while, I do think it normalizes. I mean, it's but again, I don't fucking know. That's just my opinion. That's
I
my
know.
guess.
Well, that's what's great in all of this is that, you know, everyone's got an opinion about what it's going to be, but it's so weird. It's like no one really knows.
No one really knows.
No. And I think part of the problem is that there is no unified, this is what it's going to be. So like every local government has all kinds of ideas of what it should be. And so what does that mean for us? Does that mean that the day we're in Dallas is different than the day in Oklahoma City as far as protocol?
I think that will for sure happen.
Interesting.
I'm just because them's the rules. You know what I mean?
No, I know, but it's like, how do you keep track of that? I guess maybe we have like a safety officer
or like a liaison. You know what I mean? Right? It becomes it's either a liaison or a further task of the production coordinator, assistant. Of course, not all tours have those things, or just the tour manager, production road manager, depending on what size of things. And then it's how much are people really looking. And I think over time that arose. And we have to remember, we talked about on the one show that we did on COVID, there is actual precedent for this before. You know, our country went through in 1918, you know, it went through.
Sure.
Similar. So there is precedent. It's just unprecedented for our active generational members. You know what I mean? Those of us out in society.
I totally agree with you, except that we're also, you know, 5 billion people more.
Yeah. And it's just a different time.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a different time.
And gatherings are more common. So yeah, I don't know. It's going to be weird. And it's on my brain a lot.
Yeah.
But
How can it not be?
I know. But we're going to be fine, guys. Really, you know, keep moving.
Yeah.
That's our message. So thanks for coming here and spending some time with us. Hopefully these things are kind of motivating you. You know, we've gotten a lot of feedback in the comments about, you know, hey, this is really great. Thank you. You know, it's changed the way that I mix, you know.
That's been cool. Those have been cool to see people out when they get a gig and they're like, oh, yo, check this out, or what. They're just, you know, that's been neat to see.
Yeah, totally. So thanks for that, guys. Stay tuned. We've got lots of things coming. We're trying to, you know, think of things to do to try to keep contributing to the sound community. So, thanks for that. Well, that was a long intro. Let's talk about.
I just started thinking when we were doing it, though. I'm like, why not? Like, what rules do we have to follow?
No, we don't.
And we have nothing but time.
Our usual MO is to be like, what do you want to talk about today? And then we talk about it. But instead, we went off for about 10 minutes. But that's okay. What do you want to talk about today?
Anything but COVID. So that's good. Let's do what we've been saying we might do for a while, which is dig into the use of macros.
Oh, sweet.
And kind of what we, if anything, I'm sure you do something, you know, I know we all do, sure. But what that looks like.
Yeah. So guys that don't use Digico products, you may not know that Digico products have a thing called macros, which is basically kind of a script editor. Think of that for computers, so that you can, by the touch of one button, do multiple commands or control any parameter on the desk itself. And I don't know about you, Chris, but I found it a little clunky in the beginning. Like I was like trying to figure it out, and it took me a while to learn the thought process behind it. But when I started thinking about it as a script editor, then I was like, oh, okay, I kind of understand how this works. But if you're just getting into Digico products, you know, don't be afraid of it. You know, try to spend some time with it. Go get the offline version and mess around with macros. They are incredibly handy tools. So what?
And hey, real quick to point out, I know just from using, I don't know what all other.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is I'm not familiar with like Yamaha. So what does Yamaha do?
Yamaha's got, I don't know what Yamaha has. I think they have some like customizable keys or something like that. You know, like some, what is it? SSL has, they have a set of user keys that are not as advanced in the options as Digico, but they have quite a few things.
They have quite a few selections. Yeah.
So I'm sure everybody kind of has some. Does Avid have something now?
I'm sure they do.
Here comes the comments. But
actually, comment below, guys, if you have comments about that. You know, whatever the alternative to macros from a Digico perspective, what on all these other consoles.
Digico is by far the most full featured. Like, what do you want to do out of any of them?
Well, that's what I'm trying to say is that it is such a script editor that it's like literally anything, any parameter, any menu item, anything on the desk can be included in this, button script editor, which is really great, including like timed things. One of my favorite ones, just to kind of start us off, was my system engineer on Jay-Z, this guy named Adam, who now mixes Kiss. Amazing dude. And he made a macro that basically when you push it, it has a timer. So you push the macro, it has a timer. And at the end of the time period, it takes a fader and takes it from 0 and slowly fades it up to 0 or whatever, -5 or whatever it is. And the reason he built that was for walk-in.
Oh, that's good.
When you get done with all your stuff, when you're all, line checked, everybody's good, and everyone is walking away, let's say at 5:30 and doors are at 6:30, you can go into the macro and say 60 minutes, and start. And literally, like, we would be on the bus and the stage manager, the production manager would call and say, "Hey, is anybody coming in to turn on walk-in?" And we'd look at our watch and go, "Wait 30 seconds. 30 seconds later, and then go back and go, "Yeah, thanks."
That's cool. That's pretty cool.
Which is awesome. I mean, it's like, it's stupid, but it's like, kept us from anybody having to go inside to start walking in.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite?
Well, I was going to say, I have are default ones, and they're so basic, guys. This is like beyond, this is not even 101, but,
oh my God. Just real quick. There's kids out there that are building some macros that do, 20.
Yes. Yeah. And I'll begrudgingly build one of those if I have to, Yeah. I mean, I will if I have to, but like you said, the building process, I don't know that it's changed a ton so much as we've gotten used to it. You've got to be it's not so much as what you write, what you want to happen, is that you're careful to not write something in there that you definitely don't want to happen.
For sure.
Like one of my favorite ways to do it, if it's something other than my really basic ones, which I'm getting ready to tell you, is the capture feature. Which, guys, what that is it's like you go into the macro section and you hit capture. And if I'm not mistaken, it turns like bright pink. And what that means is it takes a record of everything you do.
Everything you do. If you touch a fader, everything. Be careful.
From that point forward until you turn that off, and then that's the macro. But you got to be careful, because if included in that is switching to a screen or something else, that too is written in it. So remember, when you hit it, it's now it'll do all the things you wanted to, but did you really want that screen to switch? And so you have to be very careful. So, but I love that one. Like if I've got all my ducks in a row and I know what I want to do, I just do capture, and it's just a matter of going boop, 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 hit the button again. And thank you very much. There's my macro,
and you can take out something, right?
And you can, once you, and that's the thing too. Like if you know how to read the script, you know how to go in there and go, nope, I didn't want that. Nope, I didn't want that. I didn't want, and you pull things out.
They're literally like in computer land, they are separated by commas, and you can just like,
right.
Oh, I don't want that to do something.
Yep.
So
yeah, mine are this, and I always use the same colors for them. Of course, the absolute main one that I have always, it's in the same spot every time, and it's in bright red, is save session.
Yep.
That's the one that, just hit save. I'm going to hit that one all the time.
And the reason, let's just say the reason that you do that is the touchscreen move to save a session is a 2-part move, right? Like file and then save. So I don't want to deal with that all the time. All I want to do is reach up and hit save as I'm working, hit save.
Yep. And some of these I'll mention too they're really just for ergonomic reasons. Like those macros are usually as if you can see where I'm standing now, is just a quick reach.
That's right. Whereas
some of the other ones are as you were saying, it's more of a disruptive, go up to the top, change the main screen. So it's just for ergonomic reasons, just a quick grab. Yep. Save session is always one. The other really big one for me is, if you're a snapshot user, is update current.
That's it.
Right. And those are the two, and I have them together, and that one is always yellow.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. And you have to be careful that so that when you're writing it, you could put in like duplicate, you could make all kinds of, you can make whatever you want. But for me, it's always update current, because those are the fast sorts of things to do.
So as you're working, guys, you're doing stuff, you make a couple of changes super quick. I want to update that snapshot. Done.
Right.
Right. I actually haven't asked you this, if you run your snapshots with that option to where you can poke at the snapshot and have it go to that snapshot. Because the reason I ask this is I don't run that way. I run to where you could select any of those snapshots, and one of my buttons is fire.
Oh, interesting. You mean one of your macros?
Macros is fire. Yeah.
Oh,
that's right next to update. So save, update, fire. And with fire, especially during rehearsals, you can, when they're just playing random songs, they're not playing in any sort of order, you can just poke at the one that they just started and hit fire, and it's quick.
Got it. No, I definitely would never have it to where I could randomly touch one and it would go there.
That is a preference. You know that, right?
Like, I know. I actually didn't even know that.
I think it defaults to that. I'm not sure, but I know that's an option. Like literally you can, have it to where it triggers to next or fires when you poke it.
Yeah.
Whatever the snapshot is.
Yeah. So, so to answer your question, no, I do not do that. And I would not do that.
Comment below if you guys do that and why you would do that.
Why you would. Yeah. I mean, I even get weird about it's funny. I couldn't tell you when, because it's never happened that I've had someone in a real large scale concert fall on my console. You know what I mean? Like that's never happened, but I'm very wary of people around. And one of the big things is like touch screens off to the side. Now everybody defaults to giving you a touch screen. And I oftentimes ask for a lot of my stuff to not be touchscreen, because I don't want someone to walk by, grab the screen, have to go I have this one gig where actually will be, guests will be given access through this one part of front of house that comes right up. Anyway, the point is, I'm just like, no touching.
That Vegas gig?
It's not that's one too. Yeah, that's a great one. Everybody that comes by me at the Bruno thing.
In between the lighting guy and you. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's on another one, and people just idiots come through constantly. And I'm just like, nobody touch anything. Yeah. Yeah. So
I didn't think about that, actually. Now you got me panicked about it. Like literally someone just grabbing a screen to move
it. Or a well-intended tech that's out there that gets called to do something, and they grab a Waves something and they jack it up 12 dB.
Mute your master rack.
Right. Anything, So now as far as some of the other ones go, okay, save and update are obvious, and everybody that uses these, I would imagine, does that. I'll also have some things like I'll put my taps, even if I'm not using, even if I'm using delays from an external source. We've talked about this on here. I'll write them within the Digico session in case those external sources take a shit and I have to go to Digico, or I'll use a mixture of both. Or sometimes I'll just be like, you know what, let's just use the Digico stuff.
Yep.
And even though those will all be written into the snapshots, I'll also have tap 1 and tap 2 as some, right? Pretty basic.
I have to do that because I work for a band that doesn't have any playback, so there's no click.
There's no click,
right? So you know, every tempo is close. It's close, and I have a bunch of delay cues that are like you know, quarter note and a 3/4 note. You know what I mean? Like they're weird and have to be right on the money. You know, and so there's one particular song where I'm literally like doing taps to their tempo for the entire first like intro part of it because of this one cue that has to be right. You know? And it's one that everybody knows, right? Like, you know, it's like the one important delay cue that everyone's like, that has to be there. It's on the record, you know?
Here's an interesting question, sidebar. When you're doing a tap, the answer is the same for both. Are you just doing time, or are you thinking of like when the phrase would be said and when the word would be repeated? Does that make sense?
No, for me, it's always time.
It's just time, straight time.
Yep, straight time. And then setting the delay to do so that it sees beats per minute, but then does the quarter note, half note thing. Or, you know,
right.
So I actually, that's a really good point. My tap tempo is one button. Like I don't do different timed delays. In other words, so if I have an 1/8 note delay, a quarter note delay, a quarter half note delay, those are from the same tap button. They're accepting the beats per minute and then deciding whether they're 1/8 note, you know.
Right. Like, in other words, it's set within the delay what the subdivision is going to be.
Correct.
Of that tap.
So I'm not doing, you know, 1/8 note and then quarter note. And,
right.
But that gets a little crazy for bands that aren't using playback, you know. It's like
well, that's the way we all did it forever anyway.
For sure.
That's why that's a thing, you know, or why guitar players, or they're still up there, you know, by and large, usually tapping stuff out.
Yep.
So again, that's where snapshots kind of make us lazy. It's like, oh, I have to tap. Oh, I don't have that kind of time. You know what I mean?
Actually, I got to tell you, you know, it'd been a while since I'd done a band that doesn't use playback. And so a lot of those things I had to renew my skills with. You know what I mean? Like I hadn't done tap delays for a long time. Although I am just like you, even with a playback band, there is a tap delay macro.
Always.
Just in case. Always. Yeah. But I hadn't really used it for years. And then all of a sudden, you know, 3 years ago, I started working for a band that absolutely had to have it.
Right. I'll keep on my first layer on the SD7. I like it on, I think it's the SD5 where there's like 10 of them.
Yes.
That would be cool. And I'm sure whatever Digico builds next as their flagship product will have many. Like I think when we messed with the
338,
I think it had like 8 or something. Maybe it had 10. I can't remember. We didn't have it for very long. Right. But my
great desk, by the way, it's, you know, for the price point, it's amazing.
It totally is.
Yeah.
For me with my macros, like the first layer, which is only 5 buttons, is what I consider utilitarian stuff.
Yes.
So it looks like save, and this is actually moving from the right to the left, save, update. I try to leave a space.
Yeah.
And then what I've done is, because I'm a big, I am a big soloer, even if it's not to listen, to look at the meters.
Yes.
It's right. What I'm talking about is right on the surface. It's right there, but I have moved it to where it's in the macro level where I have my changes from whether it's a PFL or an AFL type of solo. And then I also have clear on there. And I know this sounds lazy, but I swear to you, it's so much quicker to go boom than to reach up to the top and do it. So I keep those two. So those are all my strictly utilitarian stuff right there. And then if I start doing crazy stuff, or not crazy, but like moving into stuff like taps, those move to the second layer.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And also because I don't want that layer to be open. And again, I don't know what environment I think I mix in. There are going to be like ninjas falling on my console at all time.
I don't know, but it's pretty awesome.
People jogging screens, but I'm just so protective of everything that I would hate for any tap tempo type thing to be hit
totally
in the middle of a performance. So I keep those where it takes a little bit more effort to get to them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that first layer looks exactly the same for me. The only addition that I have in there is fire, current selected snapshot or whatever it is.
Do you do the solo stuff there too?
I do. Yeah.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yep, I do. So I don't do AFL and PFL, but I definitely solo clear.
Yeah.
Because, both of us obviously work in a solo mode where it's not individual and then it switches to the next thing. We work in a mode where 16 things could be soloed.
Correct.
And sometimes those things are in different banks and it gets crazy. So I reach clear like a lot,
Yeah.
So that's what mine looks like. It's for me, just to keep us going here. I always put danger zone macros, ones that will absolutely screw things up if they're touched, in macro bank 8.
Oh, so that's the furthest one, right?
Furthest one away from me. And also one that I'm not even thinking about. So like I'm using maybe the first 3 pages worth of macros. But that 8 one are the, 4 or 5 that are like master bus insert is right macros. I had I did Jay-Z where I was making analog stems. And so I wrote a pretty extensive macro that had all those inserts of those digital stems that were then going to analog stems that was then returning into the master bus. So basically I could bypass.
You mean you were doing, you've got a summing.
I do. I was using analog summing.
I see what you're saying.
And so I think we talked about this before where, there's a bunch of cabling, there's a whole other stage rack, there's all kinds of things that could fail. So I built this macro that was like, take the whole analog summing thing out of it and back to digital summing. So if any of that failed, that rack lost power, whatever, it was literally go to bank 8 of my macro, hit that button, and away we go. And those buttons, by the way, I don't know how you do this, but they are dual buttons, right? So on and off. And I make them.
Glad you brought that up.
I make them totally different colors, usually green and red.
Yes.
Like red meaning, hey, this is not the normal operating mode, and green. So that when I fire up in the morning, I can scan across all my macros and make sure that, they're all in green mode, and so anyway, that's what I do. What do you do in that regard?
Well, one thing I'm glad you brought up was the on and off mode, which is really probably the coolest thing about the macro stuff is, well, I mean, not the coolest thing, but it's neat. And guys, that's just exactly what Pooch just said. So that the same button, one push, what it implies, on, off, the most simple thing could be like, you could make a mute or something. But they're kind of difficult to write. Those, even after how many years I've been using that desk, 10 years or whatever.
That's the clunkiest part of that.
It is the on off part. It will keep me, if I'm being honest, it will keep me from writing a macro for a while because I'll be like, how does the on off thing work again? And because I know it's so simple.
It's almost counterintuitive. It's like off means on, really. Or I can't honestly, guys, I haven't been in front of a desk in 5 months now. So I can't honestly remember the exact terminology. So please don't write comments like you're an idiot. Right. I know I'm an idiot.
For me, it's just the way you have to write it is.
It is. Yeah. It's just clunky. But once you figure out the workflow of it, it works well. And just like Chris said, it's the way to make one macro button be multifunction.
Yeah.
You can do several things.
So. For me, the one thing that I will definitely bury somewhere is it will be the one, was first introduced to me as an oh shit macro, which is to turn off all, it could be to turn off anything, but usually where I'll have it is if it turns off all of my plugin server, it just turns the inserts on and off.
The inserts on the individual channels and groups that go to whatever universal audio or waves, right?
Waves, or just for me. And I've never written it where it also includes my outboard stuff, but whatever you might have external from the desk, were it to fail, this is a global way to turn all that off. And that's super important. And I've mentioned on here before, I've gone whole tours because it's an extensive, you talk about taking a while to write that, particularly if you're using a lot of plugins or you're just doing a lot of shit. It takes a while to write that one. Like you really have to, that's like busy work to the nth degree, So I've gone whole.
Think about what you're doing, because it's possible. And this is a great discussion. This is why I always tell people, try not to have your waves racks or universal audio rack be gain staged, because as soon as you pop all those inserts out, and you've taken all your plugins and they're all gain staged to where with the insert in it's 6 dB hotter. Now when you have a failure across your whole console, you're gonna, your gain is gonna go to shit.
Totally.
It's something to keep in mind. I try to not make my plugins be a gain stage. Like I try to work on the gain properly on the channel so that it's going, whether the inserts is in or not, it is just only compressing, not adding gain.
Right. And you know what? That's actually why we're talking about it. I'll tell you one that I've done as well, is a lot of times if I am A-Bing gear or plug-in, whether it be plugins or outboard or whatever it might be, or even just a scenario, I will write a macro that swaps from like one patch to the other. So I can, with at the push of a button, I can sit there and do two things. One, which one do I like better? Or it might be like an on-off type thing where I can see, or not on-off. It's just basically so I can look between the two and make sure that I'm not going, ooh, I like that one better. It's like, it's 8 dB louder every time.
Exactly.
Of course you do,
That's that, not to take us down a rabbit hole, but it's my biggest bitch about plugin presets.
Oh, the gain thing. It's such a cheap trick.
It's called hype. It's a cheap trick, man. When I see plugins from amazing guys like Andrew Sheps, for example, none of his plugins really have too much hype in them. They're all like maybe a dB change or whatever. But I look at some other people's presets and I'm just like, all that is gain. There's not, it's not making a timbre change,
Right. I was out at last year, I don't even know anymore. I was out with my buddy Robbie at the All for One Church in California, outside of LA, and we were just trying to do some neat stuff. What do we want to do? And I don't know the Kramer. I've never really dug into Kramer tape. I've just never messed with it much. I don't, whatever. And I was like, all right, let's look for some presets. And I popped one in and it was so much louder, but I could tell what it was doing was what I wanted,
True. So then you went back to the output side of it and just turned it down. I
went to the output side, adjusted, and guess what? It didn't give me the same, oh my God, feeling.
Right.
But it was better. But that was like a shocking example of like, that should be illegal. How much, the
plugin police should come for Eddie Kramer.
Yeah.
No, and that's just a standard, literally it's a thought process of hyping stuff.
Yeah, I get why they do it.
Plugin manufacturers do it all the time.
I get why they do it. So. But so back to the topic. That's something I'll write often and that's like a macro. That's not going to live with me for a tour. I'll write it for the day, to do that. So that's one that I'll
be a piece of gear.
Being a piece of gear or some routing scenario or something.
Sure.
We're talking about the script history, so to speak. That's the one where you really you got to think about, okay, what am I asking it to do? And this and that. You just got to be really thorough when you write it. And particularly when you get in the on-off scenario. But that's one that I'll bury. I'll bury that. I'll bury the oh shit one. I don't know. Can you think of any like crazy ones you've ever had to write, or have you?
Yeah, totally. But before I'll tell you that one in a minute, which is pretty crazy. But actually cool. I just want to point out a simple one, which is only the master bus insert. And the reason that I have a macro for the master bus insert is not for failure. I use a subtle but spreading of my mix bus. It's a Neve unit that does take some stuff, and you can decide what frequencies to spread. So like, if you want your mid range to be spread out a little bit at a certain frequency, it'll do that, and maybe push forward your low end. So it's a thing that kind of plays with phase a little bit, and makes your mix bus, really go from like this to like this,
Yeah.
Has depth and whatever. So I have that unit that's on my mix bus, and it's great for my mix. But when we're tuning the PA,
Yeah.
it's not the thing that you want, in there. So every day there is a big, red macro that says when it's out, the master bus insert, to remind me when I look at a show. I don't know about you, but when I start a show, I'm scanning across all my macros. It's part of my flight checklist or whatever. And because you can color them, I can see right away whether or not, something is in there. Because that's happened, like literally, my system engineer has tuned the PA, and then I have forgotten to put it back in.
Yeah.
So it just reminds me. So master bus insert, super easy. You were talking about ones that are pretty extensive, kind of along the same lines for PA tuning. I've created a macro, and actually this came from Adam as well, the same guy that built the playback one. But anyway, it's a macro that all of my outputs to the PA, left, right, sub, front fill, whatever, are matrix items. Okay. And I've built a macro that takes a noise channel and inserts it on those matrix outs and disables the master bus. So when my system engineer is working, like if we're in a situation where we're totally time crunched, and we have 15 minutes to tune the PA and then 2 minutes to hear it, I still need to do some virtual playback at first to kind of get myself back together from the night before. So I built this macro so that a system engineer can still be tuning the PA, because it actually sources from the output of a smart rig.
Right.
Straight into the matrix, right? And allows you to time align and do all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, it has removed the mix bus so that in my headphones, I'm hearing the master bus in the solo mode, and I can work in my headphones doing mixing, getting my shit together, virtual playback wise, while he is still able to have noise coming through the console. So very, very handy. I've had many situations where we've been totally time crunched, and that particular macro, saved us 10 minutes, which is, when you're time crunched, that's an important 10 minutes. How about you? What's your longest macro?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I know one. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this out right, but there was a scenario once where we were doing a TV taping for Lady Gaga, and I was there. My console was there and in the room, and there was a small PA hanging, but it was inappropriate and not necessary for me to be at show. In fact, it was destructive for me to be at show volume. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there was a truck, of course, there was a truck there doing its recording truck, mobile truck, doing its deal. But because it was 9 million inputs. And because I was well dialed in, my mix was going to be used for all the reference stuff. You know what I mean? So I had this now. So basically, so here's the deal. So there's me. I am actually mixing. I'm not just like there, like flippantly turning it up, being like, okay, cool, I get paid today. Like I have to pay attention to what's going on, but I can't have the PA loud. It has to be just loud enough. But then I needed to there was like 3 different SA mics, stage announce mics. There was like, there was the stage manager, there was like a producer and a director, all had to then come through the PA at legit volume at any given time. So what I had to do, this was a mixture of matrix and macro. Oh shit. And of course I had to do all of this in like 5 seconds. You know what I'm saying? So I think what I did was, instead of the PA, I didn't want to turn, the problem was I didn't want to turn my master bus down, because that's what was going to all the record stuff.
Totally get
it. And the way I usually do it is the PA is sourced from that master bus, the master stereo bus fader, sits at 0. It goes to, for me, it doesn't go to a number. It just goes to 2, PA left, PA right. And then that is what I turn up and down, and it gets matrixed in the processors. So now I'm having to have the PA really low, super low, but I need those announce mics to come through loud. So I had to write a new, it was like I had to make a new matrix with the PA turned down.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
On the input side.
On the input side
of the matrix, the PA is turned way down.
Right. Instead of sitting at 0 always and being adjusted by the fader. Right. But now it's turned down, but all those talking head mics
are at 0.
And then somehow it then incorporated into a macro where I believe the macro was simply to mute the stereo bus feed to the matrix so that the talking heads could stay active. You know what I mean? It was one of those things where I was like, I am so unbelievably glad I have this console right now.
Yeah, totally.
And there's no one that's going to pat you on the back for writing that macro. Like, that's just going to be one of yours, like, fuck yeah, that was pretty slick. And I remember it being a personal win, and it felt really good, but it was kind of a shady moment how I wrote it. And I think it was a little more complex than I'm describing it. But that was the one that always
you had a bunch of stuff happening with one button hit.
That's why what always comes to mind. And there was some on-off feature to it as well that did a couple things. That's one example of a macro that I never would have in a million years thought that I would have needed to do that. But I did it. I was glad I had it, and it went away after that show. I've never had to do that again.
I have the utmost respect for live sound guys that do TV shows, man, because all of that shit comes up all the time. They must all the time have to write some weird macro to make stuff work. And, having worked in TV, I did a Nickelodeon show for like 3 years. They don't care, and they want it now.
That's what I was going to say.
If you screw it up once, you'll never hear the end of it. Like, it's like, oh, we're waiting on sound again.
Right. They're shitty about it.
That kind of attitude. And so I have the utmost respect for live sound guys that do TV. It's hard, not easy. Cool. Great macro. Let's see. I was trying to think of some other things. Have you ever been in a situation? I have been in a situation with several bands where the background vocals switch. So in other words, the bass player that is always usually playing on stage left, oftentimes for a background vocal section, runs over to stage right and sings. The problem is that his gain and timbre and all kinds of things EQ are completely different than the stage right guy. So if he walks over to the stage right microphone and sings into that microphone, it's not pretty at all. Like, it's bad. I've had a couple of bands that are like that. And so I've built macros that switch the inputs of both of them, and also adjust the gain properly. So I'm trying to think exactly what it does.
I could see it would take mic 2, and then when engaged for Fred, mic 2 has 12 dB of gain, maybe an accompanying EQ. The other press of the button switches it for Steve, which has 18 dB of gain and a different, that kind of thing.
Yes, that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
I believe there's a plug-in change in that too. Like there's a insert and a B insert, and they're opposite of each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a bunch of stuff that has to happen in order to make that happen. But it works really well. One button push. I'm paying attention. Oh, he's running over to stage right again. Let's do that swap. Because inevitably the guy that's normally in stage right, when one guy runs to one side, he runs to the other. So it is almost always a swap.
I've never had to do that, but I've had to. And real quick, let me say something. When you mentioned that A and B, where the inserts are on the Digico, that's why I have to write a macro for the thing, is because most times I am doing something in that EQ section in the middle that does not make it a one-to-one thing. Correct. So I'm basically making A change or B change or something. Anyway, I've never had to do what you're talking about, although that makes a lot of sense. And again, that's why they've made that functionality. I have done things though, where it might've been on Bieber, where, some people's, actually not most people, that they're singing and they're addressing the crowd voice are so markedly different.
I've done this as well. Yep.
Where I will drop in like a whatever I have available still, like a graphic EQ or something that will allow them that will make it to where it's intelligible at all, know? So I've done that. I have done that before.
I mean, in general, kind of what we're talking about too, is that macros make, even if it's only doing one single function, it makes it easier to be right in front of you and easy access to, as opposed to finding that channel, opening the insert section, going to insert B, and then the on and off button. So if all of that is on a single button that's right in front of you, yes, it's only one function. It's only doing one stupid thing, but it keeps you from getting lost in pages of stuff.
Right. And provides visual reference with the color.
Exactly.
At least on the Digico. That's what those other desks don't do, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
The ones that I know, maybe Avid does, but the other desk just like just a button, So,
yeah. So, I had a couple of times where I had to do this. Also, I know monitor guys that use that a lot. Like Kiss, for example, Gene sings completely different than Tommy does and Ace when I was there. And so monitor guy, there is also 2 more positions on the outside. So it's 4 microphones. 4 microphones, 5 microphones. That at any time, any one of those guys could go to those 5 microphones.
Ooh.
So they've built macros for the specific guy. Say Paul goes to stage right. Now he's singing lead vocal from stage right. Now he's up on the wing singing lead vocal. So monitor guys, build macros that keep all of that the same. Wherever the guy goes, it's going to sound the same.
Right.
And I've seen that happen a lot. I know most monitor guys build macros that can easily switch mixes to different packs and inputs for, transmitters and that kind of shit. So like, for instance, all of their backup stuff is all macro oriented. Like, okay, that pack fails. Now I'm switching to another transmitter. I know Tater does that. He is a proponent of, he says this all the time. He's like, a lot of guys take 2 packs coming from the same transmitter and that's their backup, right? They say, here's this pack. Okay, if it starts to fail, then just hand them the other pack. But what that isn't changing is the transmitter.
Right. What if that's what's failing?
Exactly. And all that other routing. He's like, if you need a backup, I want to change all of it. Like I want it to be coming from a different source to a different transmitter to a different pack. Because you don't know in the battle, you don't know which is failing. You know, you don't have time to like figure out what's failing. Is it the pack? Is it the transmitter? Is it the whatever? So I've seen his console. It has pages of, you know, just on off backup stuff that switch information to going to another transmitter. So I've seen
and you'd have to stay on your toes with stuff like that.
Yeah. You know? I don't know if you remember on Bieber, like Alex, the monitor engineer, had all kinds of macros going on for talkbacks.
Yes.
You remember that?
Yes.
So I'm not sure exactly what he was doing, but it was crazy. Like all kinds of matrix changes. So that, you know, for example, the musical director wanted to be able to only talk to the band, and then only, you know, wanted to be able to talk to Justin in some cases. And literally he had one single talk back, and he would use his push button, say to Alex, hey, I need to talk to Justin. Alex would hit the macro that allows his thing to go to Justin.
Right.
And then there was like way more. There was like crew involved in that too, where Alex had control over the crew talking back to certain people. It was, I mean, I just remember it was like, you know, half of his job was managing these top.
Right. You know what's so funny? And this is, God, it's almost wrapping us up here right where we started, where we got a little long-winded. I'm just thinking about all of this stuff, all of these people, with all of these skills and all of this attention to detail at every moment, sitting the fuck at home right now. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. Sorry, didn't want to have to go there.
No, but I mean, that is the deal, right? I mean, I always tell people the days when I started, and I think when you started as well, were, you know, Lost Boy, Cocaine Cowboys.
Yeah.
Like literally, you ran away to the circus and came and worked in this industry, and then you learned your trade. That was how our industry was 30 years ago. Now it is highly skilled, highly trained individuals that know things about networking and, you know, everything that you need to know in order to get digital audio happening is a huge skill. And so that's what's crazy is like these guys that have all this knowledge are now, you know, doing whatever they have to do to make their families survive.
It's crazy. And I realize
we're not come back, by the way. That's what kills me is it's like, if they pivot to something that maybe pays them the same and allows them to stay at home, they may stay there when we come. Yeah. So what does that mean? Like, what does that look like? It looks like us who don't know any better. Right. Going back to work.
Come back in.
Yeah. Going back to work with people that don't have the skills. And there's going to be failures, and it's going to be bad. It's not going to be good. So yeah, about that all the time.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, again, we're not landing rockets on the moon here, you know, I mean, we're talking about,
but we are
singer is where, but still like that's effort. And that's like, again, there's no blueprint for how to do this. There's no manual. It's like, here are your tools. What are you going to do? You know, and that also kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Is like, this is our creative output, you know? But yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I always talk about, I have skills that a lot of people don't have. And just because they're a doctor, you know, my own father, who's in his late 80s now, is literally, my favorite story about him is back in the days of beepers. He still had a rotary phone. And on that pager that I had was a voicemail thing. Like if you didn't dial in a number right away, it went to voicemail and you could leave a message. Well, I got a message one day of my father on a rotary phone going zip, zip, because he thought that a rotary phone could put in the numbers into a pager. This is a guy who's a doctor and has his hands in someone's chest every day, yet he couldn't figure out how to operate a
That's great.
pager, right?
Right.
So I just mean that, there are skills that we have that even, so what if you're a doctor, you might have skills about that, but you don't know how to operate a, Digico SC7.
Right.
And so I'm afraid that we're going to lose some guys that have those kinds of, specific knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
Well, whoever's going to step up, I guess, get ready. Because
this is going to be awesome. Well,
it go on. I mean,
it
does as that is,
chapter, right? So maybe there's going to be people that get an opportunity that didn't have it before. So
yeah, and that's it, and that's what it's going to be. It's when people just kind of pushed along.
Yeah. Cool. Before we ended up here, any other macros? Just
not that come to mind. I'm sure, as usual, once we stop, I'll think of something in an hour, but no, not really. But it's just a highly super powerful tool, something you should embrace, but definitely make your own. Again, some of ours are probably sound archaic to some listeners or viewers or whatever, but
which brings up a really good point as a way of teaching and all of us learning. In the comments below, put in a macro that you think is important or that you use. That's great. I'd love to hear what some of you are doing out there. Teach me. I want to know.
Yeah.
Comment below.
Totally.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. We hope you got you a little bit of knowledge about how we use macros, and hopefully some of you comment below with how you use macros, and maybe we can share our knowledge. Yeah. All right, guys. Take care. Have a great week.
See you, everybody.